I think we'd all agree that the acquisition and development of commercial real estate continues to be extremely competitive between cities and regions and states. The location advisory and incentive practice of CTMT routinely works in the economic development arena. Katie Culp and Tim Monger will look at real estate from their advantage point.
You know, Katie, it's been 3 years since we last spoke at the State of Real Estate. What's up with that?
You're right. Do you think management is trying to tell us something?
It's entirely possible. A lot has changed since we first spoke at State of Real Estate, hasn't it?
Definitely. The location advisory and incentives practice was pretty new to CTMT, and so were we. Now our team has negotiated almost $160 million of economic incentives for almost 7 million square feet of office and industrial space.
And don't forget where our assignments have taken us. We've worked in 40 states.
I'm still waiting for the deal that will take us to Hawaii. But in the meantime, we've had a lot of great experience in other markets.
The audience might be interested in better understanding what it is we do, since we're unique in the commercial real estate business here in Indianapolis.
Great point. Do you want to start?
Sure. Basically, we provide location analysis and incentive procurement to corporate clients. Our location analysis usually involves multiple state and metro areas within those states. And sometimes it involves evaluating submarkets for our clients. Generally speaking, we focus on labor issues, cost of doing business, and even supply chain issues to find the ideal location for our client to do business.
For example, a recent client was interested in the availability of qualified workers in several states along the East Coast. The client also wanted to know the jobs in demand in the area, unionization, and the cost of labor, particularly the wages of workers with the skills most important to that client.
The overall cost of doing business in competing states is also very important to our client. We compare utility rates and state and local taxes. Our analysis also includes supply chain issues such as supplier and customer locations.
Once we've narrowed the competition to several states and a handful of metro areas, we then focus on economic incentives as a way to reduce the cost and to differentiate the competition.
We start by identifying state and local incentives that may be available to our client, creating a strategy that maximizes the incentive package through negotiation, and we even complete the paperwork.
Imagine that, government requiring paperwork. Here's the amount of paperwork required by an unnamed state beginning with the letter I. We also assist our clients with compliance reporting. When government provides tax credits, tax abatements, training, and infrastructure grants, they expect to hear from you at least once a year, and sometimes more frequently.
Just to be fair, all the states we've negotiated incentives for our clients require paperwork and periodic reporting on the business's progress. I'm in the middle of completing the paperwork for an incentives package for a client investing $140 million in a new manufacturing facility in Arkansas. And Katie has wrestled with paperwork for a life science company that invested $135 million in North Carolina.
Since we're always asked about it, don't you think we should talk about how Indiana fares when it comes to economic incentives and location analysis?
That's probably a good idea. Wouldn't you characterize it as middle of the road?
Definitely. We aren't the best, and we aren't the worst. Our cost of doing business is very good. In fact, as Luke mentioned, Forbes recently rated Indiana, their cost of doing business, as the 6th lowest nationally and the lowest in the Midwest.
Since Indiana is a very low-tax state with lower utility and labor rates, Indiana doesn't have to give away the store when it comes to incentive packages.
That's true, but Indiana is challenged on a number of fronts too, and there are some things we can't change. For example, Indiana lacks natural amenities like mountains and oceans that seem to attract large numbers of high-skilled workers. Our population levels are moderate, and corresponding city resources like having an airport hub with a large number of direct flights are not in our immediate future. Also, it is perceived that Indiana has high levels of union activity and low levels of high-tech workers. We have a hard time competing with cities on the coast.
The good news for Indiana is that when a project is considering a number of Midwest locations, Indiana competes pretty well.
That's true.
You know, one of the things I'm most worried about as I look into the future is our property tax crisis.
I couldn't agree more. It's a mess right now. And the uncertainty with regard to how it will change exacerbates the situation further. Over the last several years, there have been a number of changes made to our property tax system. First, a change to a market-based system, and then changes regarding who does what in the property tax process. As a result, tax assessments were wildly inconsistent, and the process for doing anything started to vary greatly by municipality. Things like property tax abatement were handled very differently from one community to the next.
In addition, after last fall's election, some township levels of government have been eliminated. While the two of us agree that this is a good thing, this has temporarily resulted in chaos. Robert Cowan will show us examples of this inconsistency in his residential speech.
Variations in assessed valuation between jurisdictions doesn't just apply to residential. Identical commercial buildings in two different counties may have dramatically different assessed valuations.
There's also a marked variation in how the paperwork associated with abatements is handled by different counties. Some don't closely follow the rules established in the abatement agreement, some do. Again, inconsistency.
In addition, great uncertainty remains over the potential tax caps on residential and business properties.
Katie is referring to the proposed 1%, 2%, and 3% caps, which might become a constitutional amendment. The circuit breaker caps have the potential to lower residential taxes, but with lost revenue from homeowners, government will look to commercial property to make up the loss.
But back to the uncertainty and confusion, at this time, we don't know. We don't know the rates, whether or not there will be caps, the assessment process, the potential loss of local revenues, or the consequences of those losses.
With this backdrop, our fear is that property tax abatements may end up on the endangered species list. With localities unsure of their potential revenue stream, it reduces their willingness to grant abatements. And more residents are focused on property tax issues these days, which makes obtaining property tax abatements more politically challenging and uncertain.
The not knowing and uncertain outcomes put Indiana at a disadvantage when competing with other states for new business.
You know, I think we're beginning to sound like the prophets of doom. We should probably mention good news.
That our presentation is almost over?
That too. But we must point out that Governor Daniels pulled together the Kernan-Shepard Commission, a bipartisan effort that released its report last year with 27 recommendations to streamline local government. The stated outcomes of the proposed actions are to reduce the cost of local government and reduce the complexity due to the outdated and cumbersome structure.
Most recommendations have not yet been implemented, but the governor, several legislators, and a number of lobbying groups appear to be very focused on seeing these changes made.
The challenges will be timing and political courage. Can the legislature pass these significant changes during a budget year? And does the legislature have the courage to implement the politically challenging recommendations of the Kernan-Shepard Commission?
In spite of the property tax challenges we've outlined, there have been a number of impressive wins in 2008. Our slides illustrate just a few of the biggest economic development deals in central Indiana.
So do you think it'll be another 3 years before we're asked to speak at the State of Real Estate again?
At least, I hope.
Katie and Tim, thank you for some great perspectives there as well.